Hola!
I'm Johanna.
And I'm Denisse.
Welcome and bienvenidos to the Love and Evolve podcast, where we discuss topics surrounding holistic wellness such as mental, physical, and spiritual health. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer.
Love and Evolve Wellness Podcast is a community space for conversation, growth, and healing. However, it is not a substitute for professional mental or medical care. El podcast no sustituye ayuda psicológica o médica.
We encourage you to seek resources and support in your community. We love you, los queremos mucho, and you matter to us.
Thank you for listening, and on to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Love and Evolve podcast. This is Johanna.
Hello, everyone. This is Denisse.
We are so excited to be here once again on the Love and Evolve podcast. Thank you for being here.
Always excited. And today's topic, and y'all voted for this one. We've had it in our topic list for a bit, and so thank you for reminding us that it was there. Today's topic is remedios. Dun, 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 dun.
Yes. So we are going to be covering remedios today, and we wanted to make sure that we were on the same page about what we meant about remedios, because that can be so many things to so many different people. And know that they are all valid, but just so we all are on the same page for today, a remedio is something that we implement for healing. And at least for me, and Denisse, please share what it is for you, but when I hear remedio, I instantly think of my mom saying, "Tómate un té de camomile." Like, that's what she would tell me. Or "Tómate un té de manzanilla," and like immediately my tummy would feel better. Or it was always vaporu for a cough, vaporu for really anything. So that's what comes to mind for me. But what about you, Denisse?
To me, I think of my grandma when I think about remedios, because she always has an answer or something to share. So it's like, put this in your licuado. Make sure you're adding a little bit of papaya, or you're doing this and it's good for this and that. I'm like, okay. And I'm taking notes, like, all right, I'll try it. Or, the good old, just like put some cucumber on your eyes. So it usually has to do with food, something food or plant related.
Yeah. I actually, as I hear you saying that, like, so I had a really bad burn when I was, I want to say 9 years old, maybe 10. I was in Mexico, and over there you could go and buy cuetes, like, like, what do you call them? Individual fireworks. Is that what you call? So I had this whole bag of them, and I was just swinging them around for quite a bit. Like, I was playing, I was doing stuff, but I was swinging this bag.
Oh no.
I laugh about this now, but next thing you know, and I got this massive burn on my belly. And I just remember, all my tias were there, and they were like, "Ahorita rápido te aliviamos, real quick, we'll whip you up back into shape." And I remember them like cracking eggs on my stomach, cutting up some onions and like layering it on the burn. And I mean, I kid you not, it smelled funny, but like it relieved so much of the pain, and like it was stinging before. And so it just felt cool and refreshing. And yeah, so all I have now is this little tiny scar in one corner, and then it's like nothing ever happened.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm always curious about where all of this knowledge came from, of knowing why or how something works and how it will help. That's amazing. Yeah, which reminds me, one of my tias gave me something to put. It's like, it looked like bark, and it was supposed to help for hair growth, and I don't even know how or why. And I think because I don't know how or why, it just sat in my bag. But she was like, "No, this is gonna work. It's gonna help you grow your hair again." I wish I knew why.
Are there any other crazy ones that you can, crazy, that's not a good word. Are there any others that might be surprising to hear about, you think?
Yeah, I can't seem to think of anything right now at the moment. I'm thinking of things that we're told to avoid to then get sick, like, make sure you're always wearing shoes and don't go outside when it's cold with your wet hair, like things like that, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that comes to mind as we're talking about this is the importance of knowing where these things come from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm recognizing that there's so many of these remedios that I don't actually know the source. Like, how far back can we go and learn and honor where these remedios came from? And because some of them, I swear, they milagrosos, they will fix anything and they will cure anything. Through my personal experience, like some of these things have done that. But it's like, okay, well, it has to have come from somewhere.
Mm-hmm. I wish there was like a book, because I know there are many conversations I've had, or not, I don't want to say many, but usually it's present. And when I've spoken with my grandma of something that's worked, of like, oh, well, that reminds me, for your headaches, this, or, this and that. Mm-hmm. And I wish there was this book kind of similar to food recipes for meals that could be passed down. Because it's so important to know how this came to be able to honor it and respect it and treat it as such, that it is something that is got so much historical relevance culturally and in a family, and traditionally and all of that. Yeah, so important to know.
Yeah. And I mean, I think one of the things I want to mention is to also not be hard on yourself if you're like, whoa, I've never questioned it before. Like that's good. If you're recognizing that, well, I've never questioned it. Like that is a really great place to be, that you are in awareness. You are in awareness of what space needs more education or knowledge, because the more that we understand our history and where we come from and the things that we use, like I feel in every fiber of my being that more understanding brings a stronger intention to what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree. Because it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you grew up with. Maybe it's something that a friend, their family shared with you, and it's just stuck with you. And, you carry that through your life anytime you're like, oh, that's right, that thing, that'll help me right now. Because they so graciously shared that with you, and have passed that information to you. And something that Joe and I were talking about was how healing practices and remedies can become a trend. And so if something has come up and become popular and it's trending and it's something that appeals to you, then to have those questions come in with curiosity. That's always so important for me, to meet things with curiosity of, why is this so trendy? What's made it so popular? Where did it come from? And having these questions, and it may seem like a lot of homework to do, but to be able to have the respect and the understanding and to really build a connection with something that's supposed to be healing, because I think that's also essential to build that connection. Then, just saying, oh, I'm just going to adopt this thing without really realizing or considering what the consequences of that may be, because you may be using someone's resources, their plants, or their history, and then now kind of taking it upon yourself as if it's yours. So it's just so important to be curious of, where is this coming from and what's making it a trend, and what else should I be questioning before I adopt this and take this into my life.
Beautifully said.
So on the topic of trends, what is something, Joe, that is, I'm just curious, that's trending either now or had trended in the past, that you were either curious about and maybe used and it's been working for you? Or
so a trend, I would say, is trendy, because I've seen it a lot on TikTok. And it's definitely something that I incorporate in my practices. And I've done so through my own spiritual path, and have felt this connection with things like sage, palo santo, meditation with tarot cards, or things of that nature. And I know that, like, based on what I've seen online, is I've seen some people try to do cleanses and things like that, and everybody has their own way of doing it, including myself. And I'm just becoming aware right now, like, okay, I'm not perfect, guys. Bringing it to you. I'm not perfect. I actually don't know where these things come from, and I'm embarrassed. Like, I should know about these things, and not in like a shaming kind of way to myself, but just that I want to honor where these originated. And if there is something that I don't know culturally, then I am opening to learning more about it. And I definitely want to make sure that I have complete awareness and respect and honoring, where it comes from.
I think that's beautiful. And it's, I think, a place that maybe some people aren't even at, in that they're not even in that questioning or curiosity. They're just kind of jumping on the bandwagon, where it's like, oh, that seems cool and everyone else is doing it, so I'm going to do it. Versus I'm hearing you have this total intention of love and appreciation and recognizing that there's room to know more so that you can then build a deeper practice and connection to these practices, as well as then having education so that if anyone else comes into your life and then asks you about it, then you can say, here's a little bit more of the history, and I probably won't know everything, because that's going to be a given, right? That we're not always going to know everything, and that there is more to learn. There's just such a deeper sense of meaning when I hear you talk about it, and more, and honesty.
Exactamente lo que estaba tratando de decir. And then also I want to add that I feel intuitively and in my gut that what I care most about is honoring the ancestors and honoring who originated these ideas or these practices, because they deserve to be given their credit, and they also deserve to feel that love and appreciation and gratitude for anyone who is taking it into their hands to practice these things as well.
Yeah, people's cultures are not trends. People are not trends.
And it is okay to be like, I need to learn more. It is an okay place to be. And actually, I thank you if you are recognizing right now that you are like, wait a second, I've been doing that thing and I don't actually know who started it or why it's important or why it's relevant. That's okay. What a great place to be. Again, repetition, because that is how we keep things and restore things. But yes, it is an okay place to be.
Yeah, it's always better to, be honest and say, okay, I don't know this, and I am willing to learn and own any mistakes I've made along the way. Yeah.
Oh, another one came to mind. Oils.
Yes,
aromatherapy.
That's a biggie. Aromatherapy, even using oils, just even topically directly on your body. So that's the other thing that I had on my mind, is the safety of using any kind of a natural product, because not everyone's body's chemistry is going to react in the same way. Similar to how my diet is not going to fit the next person's diet that I walk across down the street, right? We have different needs. And that's also a question, another source of learning, and also feel empowered to then ask, how does this affect me? So also, yes, the other people and where it's coming from, what's the origin, but then in applying it to my life, is this safe for me to use? And let me give an example. There are products out there that are like part of jumping on the bandwagon, right? So coconut oil is one. I've used coconut oil on my skin, like legs and arms, but on my face, doesn't work. And oh my goodness, to find a product without coconut right now, because it's so trending, drives me nuts. It's in everything. And so and if you have a nut allergy and it just so happens to be coconut, what the heck, just because now it's a trend. I mean, you can probably sense that I'm getting all fired up about it, because it drives me wild that something is a trend and suddenly it's branded as like, okay for all. And it's like, no. Let's really take in how this may actually be affecting somebody health and, safety wise. Have you come across anything like that, Joe?
You're speaking to my soul. Like, this happened today. Like, I was actually returning some skincare products because I learned recently that I have an allergy to, well, it's a family of daisies. So it's the species of the daisies. And I don't even have the language great right now because I just learned about this today. But essentially, anything in that family causes me to have these little white bumps on my skin. If I consume it like through food, if it happens to be in the food, because some of the relatives of the daisies are safflower oil, sunflower, calendula. I mean, these are all things that are in like other products, and especially with vegan diet, because I follow a vegan diet, that they contain them sometimes as fillers. And so I was like, oh boy. But it makes sense because, it was like this ingredient is now in all of these, not all, most of these vegan skincare products, because they're cruelty free and they're sustainable and, natural. There's all these other things. But I'm like, oh, like now my window has become so narrow for what products I can use for particular things. And it's overwhelming to find something that works for you. So I'm just saying, you're speaking to my soul. That was me all morning.
And it takes a lot of research, doesn't it? Just because,
yes,
like you were saying, there may be a family. Right?
El primo, prima, el tío.
Right, there's the whole extended family, and you've got to know what or like a derivative of, like that happens with dairy and lactose
and gluten.
Oh God,
like if you don't know the particular name, but something is listed, like I wish I could remember the name right now, everybody, but I can't.
Ingredients. Oh, that is so tricky to read through, and you have to know, oh, this is another word. So there are 3 different ways to then list this one ingredient. Okay. And then to constantly have to be reading through everything, especially through the natural products and vegan products, to then do your research to make sure it's something that can work for you, because you may have an intolerance or a sensitivity of some sort or an allergy.
Hang on, can I say something about sunflower real quick?
Yes, please.
It may be funny, it may not be, but I kind of had an addiction to sunflower seeds like a year or 2 back.
Explain.
They're so fun to chew. They have all these flavors. And it wasn't like I just had a handful. I had the bag. These things taste amazing. And now I'm finding this out and I'm like, pues con razón. Like I was consuming like so much of it. So yeah, anyway, I just had to share. They are delicious.
Revenge of the sunflower. It's coming back,
and it's also my favorite flower. So I'm just like,
oh, a different thought, but kind of on the same thread, is in dosage. So if you want to, come up with your own remedies, and you're really loving how to source the earth and everything that it has to provide for us, then also learning about dosage and, the amounts and, seasons. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about it, so this is something that I would need to research more, but that there are people who can educate you. So there's one I took from Hood Herbalism, and they're great. So if you want to take a course, they're BIPOC owned, and you can learn about respecting the origin of plants and then how to do it in a way that is healthy for you. And of course, there's not a one size fits all, but at least you can get set on the right direction. So that's just a little something there. Oh, it came to me, but I didn't want to I've been talking a long time, but it finally came to me. This isn't an ingredients for like topical things, cosmetics, but this is in food, because food diets can be made a trend, which also drives me nuts. So several years ago, kale had a big happening, like debut or something.
I do like crispy kale.
I like it too. I like it. But at this time, this was like several years ago, it was just like this big hit of like, we're all going to be eating a ton of kale. And it just did a real number on me to then suddenly start eating a lot of plant-based products. And if you're going to go vegan or have a plant-based diet, just jumping right in, whoa, it's going to be a lot on your body. And that's what happened to me. And also my body has a hard time processing kale, because kale and quinoa and couscous, there are things like that it does take time for our bodies to process down, and it just leaves me feeling really horrible. And so it was really frustrating when I didn't know why. And I thought, well, it's everywhere. It's got to be good for you. And I fell for the whole trend. And then when I went to educating myself as to why, I felt better about not eating the kale, because you know what? It's okay not to eat kale. It's fine. You don't have to like it just because it's a trend.
Yeah, I didn't know that about you, Denise. I'm learning so much.
Mm-hmm. I can't do the quinoa. I can't.
What?
No.
I do like quinoa, but it has to be very well seasoned.
Mm-hmm. Brown rice I can do, but quinoa, nope. Couscous, farro.
Yeah, and along with like when you have a severe wheat allergy, you can't have the cousins or the siblings either. So barley, rye.
Mm-hmm.
So, and those are usually used when you buy something that says gluten-free. They might use, actually, they will often use things like safflower oil or sunflower in them. So yeah, it's just, it's really tough. And then another thing that came to mind is, and now we're talking a lot about food now, but this idea of natural flavoring. So if you look at beverages, it'll say something like flavored naturally, or and so it's marketing itself as natural. But I encourage you, if you have purchased anything that says that, to look up their website and find out on their website what they mean by natural flavoring, because
that's a good
for
one.
most people it might come off as like, oh, it's natural, so it's fine, it's going to be healthier, it's pure. That's the typical understanding of what that is. But oftentimes it's synthetically created to taste like something natural. Not always the case, but it's a term that should be questioned when you see it, because if you also have severe allergies to things, they might have mixed a couple things, but they won't tell you. They're not required. I mean, I don't know who makes these rules, but I'm assuming FDA. They're like, assuming I should probably look into that.
And also depending on country, every country has their own set of rules. Just to throw that in there too. Same goes for fragrance free. So if you're very sensitive to oils, because essential oils is still a fragrance, even if it's not a synthetic fragrance, it's still a fragrance. And if you're very sensitive to certain oils and the source of this oil, then that just may not be for you. So it may take a little bit of digging to find a product that is truly fragrance free and without any synthetic, any essential oils. So for me, that's a big one. Essential oils do throw off my skin quite a bit.
Yeah, so now we've mentioned all these things, right? And I'm sure there's millions more that we haven't mentioned right now, but we don't want to bore you with a laundry list of what's going on. There's your homework. But I think bottom line is this. We want you to feel empowered in the decisions that you're making and in the things that you are consuming. That can only make you stronger. It can make you more knowledgeable, and it can make it to when you make choices about what you're using, you are also honoring and respecting the ancestors and where it's coming from. And essentially make sure that you understand what you're using and not just doing it because somebody else is doing it. Really important to know the history and why it's important.
Yeah, and to always refer to that source. So if someone does see you like a leader, if you will, in a certain practice, and that if it's not if it doesn't come from your culture, if it doesn't originate with your family, that you can then acknowledge that and say that, and also be able to point them to a resource so that you're continuing that cycle of respect for the source and the origin of it, history-wise and all of that. And speaking of ancestors, we also do want to have a mention and acknowledge that there are healers that do not wear white suits. There are curanderos, which are also very valid. They have a place in history in general. That's a whole other discussion to be talking about the history of doctors and westernization of medicine. And I don't know a whole lot about certain healers, also because it depends on the culture and where it's coming from, again, so I can only speak to it very generally, but I did want to acknowledge that that is also very important and a valid source of healing in medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're going to summarize what we talked about today in our episode. And we opened up with defining remedios, or what a remedio is. And it's something that we implement for healing, whatever that may be for you. And we shared a little bit about our own remedios, what we grew up with, had a conversation, go in many directions. But important in that it reminded us to be curious and to have wonder and want to feel empowered and to really grow within and be more connected to these healing sources. That it's so important that people and our cultures are not trends. So let's please stay educated and informed together and really respect the origins of all of our healing practices. And if you're curious and you're wondering, what is it that I do to heal myself? What do I go to? I know I've got a few, and I think, Joe, you mentioned as well that there's some like homework, and I don't like the word homework. I think it's more about leading with curiosity, that what is it that you go to for healing? Exploration. Yeah. And exploring, what can I learn more about, and really meeting this with excitement, and that it's not about shame for not knowing or feeling guilty. It's more about growing and having a deeper connection. So if it's essential oils you go to, why? What is it about the oil that you gravitate towards? Is it the scent? If it's frankincense, well, okay, where does it come from? And are you sourcing it from a sustainable source? It's just like, this can go in so many different ways, and I think that can be very empowering. And as I'd mentioned, just make a deeper connection. And also maybe there's something you might want to change and realize, oh, maybe I'm not quite being respectful in the way that I'm using this, or maybe I'm jumping on a trend and this is actually now harming me, and I should try something else. So go on that curiosity trail.
I also wanted to share because sometimes it's like, okay, well, I would like to purchase, and I know that I felt this way at some point in my life, where like I really want to participate in purchasing sustainable, eco-friendly, cruelty-free, there's all these things that we might feel are important and values to us, but we may not be in a financial place where we can really go out there and live that way right this second or in this moment. And that's okay. I think what's important is to just be aware and do what you can, if it's like, okay, well, right now I really can't afford to go do that right now with this particular item, but just learning about it and educating yourself about it is already evolving you in your process, and the intention is sent out into the universe. And then when you're ready and you're financially in a place where you can afford those things, then you do it when you can.
Absolutely. And that resonates so much with me. And thank you for mentioning that, because I know that can also be a part of sustainability, that it's not exactly accessible to everyone. And that's a whole other hurdle too, and something that I get really fired up about, because wellness and healing is supposed to be accessible and sustainable in the sense that it's something that you can access for yourself. So in whatever stage you're at, whatever's sustainable for you, that is okay, and that's where you're at. So always meet yourself where you are. And maybe this is more about the bit of homework, but when we post our episode, when it goes live and we post about it on Instagram, we'd love to hear from you and who it is that you trust as a source and somebody that you feel has been part of your journey in learning. I had mentioned Hood Herbalism, and they're on Instagram. So we'd love to hear about who you go to, and know that you can, as you're searching through, if we have a list going, that always with a question, that you don't have to accept everyone's offering or share, that you then can also feel empowered to look into and see where the information is coming from.
Mm-hmm. Then I have a couple that I could share. Food Babe is one that I follow that is really helpful. She's been very active in the food industry and making changes on policies so that the food industry is more transparent about what's in their products. So that's somebody I really look up to and I follow. And also PETA. If you are just curious about veganism and what that is and having a plant-based diet, or, not saying that you should be, not at all what I'm saying. But if you want to learn more about that and you're curious about that, check out their website. You can always look up things like, products. You type in a product name and they are a trusty source to knowing more about where things are being sourced from, and it can be very useful.
Yes. And please know that this episode is not about shaming anyone and not about saying this way or that way. It's about learning and learning in a way that's going to be helpful to you and not harmful to you and not harmful to others.
Mm-hmm. Please be gentle with yourselves as you go into this process. We always like to share things that we believe can help us learn to not just love ourselves deeper, but also to love our planet, to love, our ancestors and love where things are coming from, to really have a deeper connection with the collective, if you want to say it that way, or if you want to hear it that way. And also because all of these things and having more connection with everything that is in existence allows us to be more integrated, not just with ourselves, but with the rest of the world. We are all connected, and the more that we question and we learn and we educate ourselves, the more we evolve and the more connection we are in.
Beautifully said. There you go, everyone. Until next time.
We love you.
We love you.
Besos.
Beso. We thank you for sharing your time with us and for listening to the Love and Evolve podcast, where we share tools, resources, and education on topics that cover holistic wellness, encompassing mind, body, and spirit.
Find details on how to stay connected with us in the show notes. We'd love to hear from you. Les damos un fuerte y enorme abrazo. Mwah.
Mwah.
Denisse is making silly faces.
Nom, 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 nom.
Okay. Oh, here it goes.